Same with Jokic, the three-time MVP, got his recent trophy before Game 5 in the Nuggets semifinal matchup against the Timberwolves, then dropped a great game to remind us all who the heck he is. 40 points, 7 rebounds, and 13 assists. How about them apples? Here's JJ Redick on why you shouldn't blame Defensive Player of the Year Rudy Gobert for Joker's performance.
That's your Defensive Player of the Year? I'm like, okay, yeah. So Jokic last night, he was 8 for 9 with Gobert as the primary defender. Going into that game last night, he was 11 for 28 with Gobert as the primary defender, including 4 for 13 in Game 4. Jokic he's the best player in the world. He's gonna score against anybody. Also, did you see the moves and the shots he was making at times? Like, oh no, like maybe just it's the offensive player is that good. And the whole point about him getting played off the floor. Look, again, I said this after Game 2 when we started talking about the weekend games last week on the Old Man on 3. Like, Denver had to figure out a way to get Gobert away from the basket. That's the challenge against the Minnesota Timberwolves. It was the challenge against the Utah Jazz. It's not an indictment on Rudy Gobert.
All right, SA, I see your face, so I feel like I might know which way you're going. Do you think Gobert should get the blame for Jokic's big Game 5?
I understand what irritates somebody like a JJ Redick, you know, who's so sensitive to these things. But the reality is that we're talking basketball, and we're watching a guy that's a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year get abused. You know, finger rolls, up and unders. I mean, I'm just looking at what Jokic was doing to this man. Of course Jokic is great. Of course Jokic is going to score on anybody. We get that. But damn, Tim, are we allowed to sit around and at least hope that somebody is going to do a better job than most others of stopping, of neutralizing him to some degree? Are we allowed to look at a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year and that plays the same exact position and say, could you do something about this just a little bit? Are we allowed to do that? Jokic had 40 points, 13 assists, 7 rebounds, and not a single turnover. Not a single turnover. When you look at look at this, Tim, I'm going to throw out these numbers to you. Games 1 and 2, when Denver was down 0-2, points per game was at 89.5. Over the last 3 games, it's increased by damn near 25 points. They're at 114.7. Their field goal percentage went from 40 to 55%. Their three-point shooting went from 36 to 47%. That's collective. That's a collective annihilation, and I get that. But somewhere along the way, is anybody allowed to say to a JJ Redick or to somebody else, can I get a little something from Rudy Gobert that maybe nobody else could give me against Jokic because he is a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year? Can I get something from him that would alter what we're seeing Jokic do to everybody else? That is, I love JJ Redick, who does a great job for us, but what annoys me about him is his flagrant annoyance with everybody else that might have a different opinion because, oh my God, stop the presses. I mean, Jokic is effing good. Well, we know that. But you're a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. Does he have to drop 40? Can it not be 20? I mean, can it not be 30? Can it not be 28? Does he have to not have a single turnover? Does he have to go up against you and exhibit such a level of abuse that it leaves us scratching our head as to how you got named the Defensive Player of the Year? We get how great he is, but damn, you're a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. Can you do something? I mean, anything. That's all we're saying. And for JJ Redick to be there, and it's like, you want us to just look at Jokic and say, well, he's great. Well, what the hell are you, Rudy Gobert? You're 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. Does he have to have 40 and 13 with 0 turnovers? Do y'all have to get blown out? I mean, can we ask for something if you are that dude defensively? I don't think that's beyond the pale, Tim. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, look, and I think it's fair what you're saying. I think I'm going to take a little bit of each of you. So for JJ's point, here's what I will say to that. And I actually made a tweet about this social media. If you didn't see it, I'm going to this is what I believed. I said, if every player who's ever played in the NBA, and you could only take one quarter, like that specific 12 minutes of any game in your career to submit as a testament to who you are as a player at your best, I said Nikola Jokic serve himself to submit the third quarter of that game the other night, because that was damn near basketball perfection, what we saw out of him. And the reason I'm saying that is, this is where I will side a little bit with JJ. I don't care that night if it was Bill Russell, if it was Hakeem Olajuwon, if it was Dwight Howard, Ben Wallace, take any of the great centers that have ever played in the history of this league. It wouldn't have mattered that night. That's where Jokic was at. His aggressiveness, his footwork, his touch. He was reading every situation perfectly. And by the way, if you did defend him half decent down there, he was throwing these wraparound passes to Aaron Gordon for dunks. I mean, it was insane, the performance he put on. So that's the only place I'll cut Rudy Gobert a break in that. Man, this dude was on another level that night. Didn't matter who was out there. But to your point, Stephen A., it is fair. It is fair to say it. It's got to be better than that. This was old-fashioned, take you down into the wood shop and go to work. And by the way, Jokic at one point in this game, I made a post about this too, 3 straight trips. He went down there and scored one-on-one coverage against the Defensive Player of the Year, followed by a perennial all-star caliber player, Karl Anthony Towns, followed by the 6th Man of the Year in Nas Reed. He did it 3 straight trips. He took on all 21 feet of center that they threw at him, and he had 3 straight baskets by going to work on him down there. That's the level Jokic played at, but I agree with you, Stephen A., to the point that you can't question getting 8 out of 9 from the field when you guard him directly. You can't have more of an impact than that, which is why I've always been reluctant to give these awards to centers that primarily are last line of defense and clean up the defensive glass. The responsibility out on the perimeter, trip after trip after trip, and everything you have to do guarding guys directly that can tune you up every trip. It's so rare for Gobert to face a guy in the post that can actually score on him in this league. And when he gets one, that's what it looks like. So that's what I'm saying, where I can kind of agree with someone. I don't blame him. Blame, you're right, Stephen. That's a wrong word. I don't blame him. But you would expect more of an impact on Jokic than Gobert had the other night.
And that is, again, getting back to my point about what annoys the hell out of me about my colleague J.J. Redick, who, by the way, is a brilliant basketball mind. Every time he's around, you learn something listening to J.J., just like I learned something listening to you. Y'all certainly know more than me. J.J.'s a brilliant basketball mind, got his podcast, got Mind the Game with LeBron, doing great things.
Yeah, I miss him not being on the show, Stephen A. He hasn't been on the show. I said I miss him not being on the show. He's busy.
Well, I don't miss him because he's busy, and I see him when the games, and I like him on the games. You understand? So he can come back, but I like him on the games. The bottom line is this. He gets so damn annoyed when he's talking about these things. Like, wait a minute, bro. You watching the game just like we watching the game. You trying to tell me that a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year is going up against a dude that plays the exact same position. And it ain't like Jokic just pulling you outside the 3-point line. He's going at you in the post. You're bouncing off of him like a ping pong ball. He's sitting. It's the up and unders. It's the finger rolls. It's everything. I get it. But if you are a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, you're up 2-0. I can't ask you, could you kind of prevent him from averaging 33 over the last 3 games? Could you kind of make sure that he registers worse numbers than 40 and 13 without a single turnover? Could you kind of try to do something to create some kind of obstacle so it doesn't look like he has complete ownership of you when he wants? Could you make it appear a little bit arduous? Could you do that? That's a lot we're literally pointing a finger at Rudy Gobert because of that. Yes, we are. You expect Rudy Gobert is not supposed to be some slouch defensively. He's supposed to be a dude that can offset to some degree what Jokic does to everybody else. And he is not doing that over the last 3 games. He has gotten abused. abused. Period.